Welcome back to Master the Marketplace with Caspian. Hi there, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Master the Marketplace. Today, we're going to talk about troubleshooting Amazon and give you a bunch of tips and tricks to help you troubleshoot your account on Amazon. And we've got a special guest that's going to help us with that today, Steve Pope, founder and CEO of My Amazon Guy. So, Steve, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, Kunal. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, Steve, to start, maybe tell our viewers, our listeners, a little bit about your background, your company. Would just love to get a little deeper.
You bet. So I'm going to go back a ways. I actually started my career as a television reporter, loved working as a reporter, hated working in the news industry. And like many of us, we aspire in our current jobs to go out there and find something else. And one night I was doing a live weather hit in Wisconsin in the middle of the biggest blizzard in a decade. And man alive, it was not the funnest experience ever. So we had, I missed my cue when I went on television. So like I looked like an idiot. My hair froze over. And at that point in time, I was like, I'd rather be at home in my pajamas than out here doing what I'm doing. So I went back to school, picked up an MBA, and I broke into marketing. I worked for, and now I can stay at home in my pajamas all day long and work e-commerce. So it's a blast. I worked for 5 failed startups before starting My Amazon Guy, and I've done everything from women's plus size clothing to kitchen equipment, even some gold and silver coins. For those that are watching the markets right now, man alive, the price of gold and silver is just all over the place. Sign of our times, I guess. But I have to admit that was the easiest product I ever sold in my life. So if you're looking for a market to go in, that might be a good one to do. Anyway, so I side hustled selling on Amazon for several years after I'd been working in e-commerce, and it just kept coming up and up. People needed help selling on Amazon. It's so difficult to figure out how to work the system, get your listings up, improve your traffic, make sales and conversion rates improve. And so after enough side hustling happened and one failed startup later in lighting, I started My Amazon Guy. So that's where we are today. And now we're a 28-person agency, full service, everything it takes to grow sales on Amazon.
That's awesome. And what was the spark that got you into maybe e-commerce or even just Amazon? Like what got you excited? At what point of time were you like, well, I gotta go into this e-commerce game?
The first item I ever sold online, and I'm going to geek out here, nerd out, if you will, was a Magic the Gathering card. And I even remember which card it was. It was the Sliver Queen. So that's in the Stronghold expansion pack for some super old school Magic the Gathering MTG players, right? This is the original trading card game. This predates Pokemon, if you will. So anyway, I sold it for $20 on eBay as like a 12-year-old kid. And I was like, that was cool. I made some cash. And it kind of steamrolled into retail arbitrage over the years. You sell a couple of things online. I ended up, going around my neighborhood, buying everybody's old Magic the Gathering collections. I bought somebody's collection for like $300, ended up selling various parts one at a time for like $5,000 over the next year as a teenager. And so I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And the fact that I didn't have to like meet anybody in person and I could make money online. So that's really what sparked it for me personally. And over the years, I have, if we're talking Meyer and Briggs personalities, I'm an architect. So I like to figure out how things are put together and pieced together and whatnot. And so I go out and figure out what lever I need to pull here to grow sales, go and do it. And then my pleasure is to see the result happen. It's so awesome because in e-commerce, it's so much faster to do this. And on Amazon, even faster than a regular website. To be able to watch sales go up. So it's lots of fun.
Yeah, that's what I loved about getting into this space myself as well. There's just the real-time nature of the space. You've got to be on top of it every day, every hour of the day. And, that's the beauty of this business. It's like a startup every day.
And when you work in an agency, it's like working with 100 startups simultaneously.
Right.
It's like, but the nice thing about working in an agency for me personally is that when one of your clients, you're waiting on something, it's cool. You got like 90 other ones you can go work on. So there's always something to do at an agency.
So tell me a little more about My Amazon, guys. So you full agency, provide everything to your brands?
Everything that it takes to grow sales. We heavily focus on the growth of sales concept, and really that can be boiled down to two key areas. Number one, traffic, everything that it takes to grow eyeballs to the listing. So that's advertising, your pay-per-click, if you will, and search engine optimization. I would love to talk a lot about SEO today. I think there's some things that I talk about that nobody else talks about. I have a 3-phase SEO process I'll go through if you're
Mm-hmm.
interested. The other is conversion improvements. And that's everything from the design, your A plus content, graphics, photos, you name it, to merchandising and catalog work. The number one thing, fastest way you can grow your sales on Amazon is to add more products, source more products, add more products, variations, different complementary, all that kind of good stuff. But often what ends up eating most of people's time is solving problems. Brick wall here. Amazon says, hey, your listing's yanked because you used the word anti in your description. You sell pesticides. What? I sell tweezers. Just because I use the word anti in my listing doesn't mean I'm selling pesticides. But the algorithm and bots have just kind of gone way out of whack on Amazon these days. Amazon, in my opinion, is entering the maturity phase of its product lifecycle. So that means the barrier to entry to sell on Amazon is going up and up. It's harder and harder. So what does that mean to businesses? It means you have to increase your sophistication level, and you're going to be spending time doing technical work that you wouldn't normally do if the marketplace was like an entrant into that field instead. So we spend a significant portion of our time dealing with catalog problems, listing yanks, and referencing that pesticides gating. If that ever happens to anyone who's listening to this, we actually released the answer key to pesticides gating right on our website. Just Google My Amazon Guy pesticides and you can go pass that test. The reason I'm doing this is because it's so ridiculous, but I've seen 56 accounts get gated for pesticides. Not a single one of them actually sell pesticides.
That's crazy. Actually, that brings me to my next my question that I wanted to start off with, which I think you already got into, is the marketplace. You've sold this marketplace for the last 8 years or so, and I'm sure it's been a very different journey. So how has the marketplace changed over the last 8 years from when you started to where it is now?
8 years ago, you could show up and sell rice cookers and be on page one, slot 5, like day one, right? It was insanely easy to grow your sales. For whatever reason, the Amazon model solved very quickly shipping timeframes and price. And the thing that really made Amazon unique at the time is that they had a catalog. Like eBay was the predecessor, in my opinion, that everybody would compare to. And on eBay, it was an auction house. So what's the difference between an auction house and a catalog is that Amazon standardized all the data for one product in one location. So if 10 people sold the same item on eBay, there would be 10 different listings, but on Amazon, it'd be one same listing. So over time, you were able to access more product on Amazon than anywhere else in the United States. And so that's really what made Amazon successful. Lots of product opportunity, fast shipping times a la Prime, and low price because they made it a marketplace instead of an auction house. Advertising. I was part of the beta advertising on Amazon from day one. You could advertise all day long for 2 cents a click, and your return on ad spend would be like 100 to 1. It was fantastic. So the strategy back then, you just drop ship a bunch of thousands and thousands of products. You could have retail arbitrage, that would work. Reverse wholesale, that would work. Private label, all of those strategies, 100%, all of them worked all day long. Over the years, I would say that the heyday of retail arbitrage burned out maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Reverse wholesale, that one burned out a year or two ago. And now we're seeing private label pressures from China going direct to consumer. So what that means is that instead of you selling that widget, that apple slicer to the consumer, China is going to go direct to consumer and cut you out, which makes the margin even better to the consumer, but is not necessarily a better buying experience because the marketing is not necessarily in English. It's a little bit broken English, all that kind of stuff. So
Right.
that's kind of where we've been and where we are today and where I think it's going to go. I think you're going to need to make high quality products to to offshoot you from the competition. You can't just be one of many selling the same white label product. And this is the one where I'm going to stick my neck out on, because you won't hear many people say this, but I think made in America is going to see a revolution. I think we're going to see that come back. And if you want to get ahead of the game, make it in America, make it high quality, and still make it fast and cheap as you can in America. And that's where you're going to see the marketplace go.
And maybe even use it as a marketing strategy, right? Be able to use that as part of your branding, made in America, etc. Maybe that's an edge that you have over some other products out there.
I saw a petition on the weekend that said, Jeff Bezos, I want to see a filter for made in America added to the left-hand side of the filter. So like that kind of stuff is happening. I mean, who knows if a couple 100,000 signatures is what it takes to get that into the filter on Amazon. But the fact that that's even occurring so far, that's a symptom to me that says the marketplace is ready to see made in America happen.
Now, to your point on the marketplace changing, which makes sense, is it across the marketplace, or there are certain categories that you think are more profitable than others? I'm sure there are, but what's your view on just the different categories out there?
If you were a business trying to figure out like where to develop, I'll tell you where not to develop. I wouldn't go into supplements right now. Supplements are a highly profitable, high margin ticket item, which is why so many people flock to it. The problem is that Amazon's become somewhat hostile to this category. Listing yanks are harder in supplements than any other category. And if you sell supplements, agencies like my Amazon guy, we don't necessarily want to work on supplement accounts anymore because it's so much more hard work. We have to charge more to service those accounts. So that means your profits overall are going to go down. Your sophistication level is going to have to go up, stuff like that. Areas that I think are still worth going into, home and goods, and an up and comer for me personally, I think is outdoors. I think that one is still undertapped, although historically speaking, not as successful as home and goods. But if you can develop items that are COVID proof and are in areas that don't have $4 a click pay-per-click ads, I think those are great areas to get into. Technology, unless you've got the latest and greatest, product, it's going to be really difficult to enter. But home and goods and anything gifty, still pretty hot in my opinion.
Interesting. Yeah, that's good. So say I decide that I'm in one of these categories. So what would be the best way to launch a brand maybe today in 2020, and maybe touch upon that SEO stuff that you talked about as well? Is like, what should a brand think about now? I've developed a product. How do I launch on this platform?
The number one most important thing that you do is have your listings ready for the honeymoon period on Amazon. In the first 14 days of your listing going live, it's called the honeymoon period. What that means is that if you have a higher velocity during your first week or two on Amazon, you're going to leapfrog the competition, both from a business ranking standpoint, like your BSR, as well as a keyword indexing. So if you go to market and you are lazy about how you go to market and you get a couple of sales this week and 10 sales the next week and maybe 15 the week after that on your SKU, your run rate's going to be a low average, and you might index for 200 or 300 keywords by day 30. If you go to market and sell 500 units in the first 14 days, your keyword rankings are going to be off the charts. You'll be in the couple of thousand indexing by day 30. And what that translates to is hundreds of additional orders through earned media instead of paid media, pay-per-click, etc. So to go to market, though, you really have to have everything set in stone. Here's the first hack or tip for you. If you're going to plan around your honeymoon period, there's a tool inside of Seller Central, if you're a Seller Central seller, to have an offer release date. Make sure that offer release date is way in advance. So if you know your item's going to land on September 15th, set your offer release date for like September 30th. And then when you're finally ready and your item's fully checked in at Fulfilled by Amazon, you can pull the offer release date back and do it whenever you need to. Best day of the week to launch an item is Sunday. Monday would be the second best, and then every day of the week following that in succession. Friday and Saturdays are the weakest converting day of the week on Amazon, as well as kind of an e-commerce in general for most industries. in my opinion, based on what I've seen. So you want to have that 2-week honeymoon period, start on a Sunday. Make sure you own your trademark. Trademarks take 6 months to get in place. So that takes a lot of planning. And so we actually do file trademarks at My Amazon Guide because it's such a common need that we went out and learned how to do it. We're not lawyers, but we're as quick as they come. You order a trademark and get it in queue. Still takes 6 months at the U.S. Patent Trademark Office. So that trademark is going to get you what's called brand registry at Amazon, and brand registry will get you a lot of benefits like A+ enhanced brand content, a brand store, and specific ads like display ads, video ads, custom brand headline ads, all that good stuff. So you have to have that in place, strategically. Now, a lot of you won't have the ability to get a trademark in place before you launch. Move forward without it. It's better to get sales going, but in an ideal world, you would have that in place. So in that first 14 days, I've kind of hit home. Sell as much product as you possibly can. And here are the things that you need to go day one. You got to have an optimized listing, 6 photos, a video, a title that's 200 characters long, bullet points that are totally flushed out, all that good stuff. Make sure your main photo is cropped appropriately. If you've got white space in the top and the bottom of your photo, that means your item is going to show up smaller in search results. So those are some core best practices. Going into the more advanced stuff, SEO and PPC. So search engine optimization, I recommend you do a 3-phase approach. Phase 1, apply the best practices. So what are the best practices in SEO? Number 1, you need to have no commas in the back end of your search terms. No commas, no repeating words. These are the fundamental 2 misunderstood implemented search term functions. And it's because Google has trained us to do it that way for years on end. The characters on the back end of your search term field on Amazon are going to be best for misspellings, Spanish, and complementary product concepts that are related to your category. So that's phase 1, get all the best practices in place. Phase 2, we like to call the pink word update. And that's where you take any word that's in your title or bullets and pull it out of your search term field. We generally do about 30 days per phase. So phase 1, 30 days, phase 2, 30 days, phase 3, 30 days, and then repeat it in 30-day cycles. So phase 2 is basically taking the best practices, pulling out any words that are already in the title and the bullet points, and adding in additional keywords. And the reason you do this is to increase the indexing, show up for more product keyword searches online. And the reason we don't do phase 2 immediately is because we found that the most indexing occurs if you do it this way, by including duplicate words in phase 1 that are already in your title and bullets. Phase 3 is the most advanced structure, and we recommend that you take any keyword that you're ranking between rank 20 through 50 and double down on it. So you make additional room in your search term field, and then you target words that you're already in the strike zone for, rank 20 through 50, and put those into every location you possibly can, your titles, your bullets, your search term field. And then here's kind of a quick hit hack number 2 of the pod. Your alt text of your A+ content has 100 characters per photo, and you can put in keywords there. Amazon claims they don't index A+ content, but I'm pretty sure they still do, because I've put Spanish there and I haven't put Spanish anywhere else in some of our testing. Totally indexed for Spanish. So I know that was a mouthful. That was SEO. We can talk about PPC next, or you're welcome to interject as you see.
No, this was great. I mean, these are the kind of tips and tricks that I'm sure our listeners they want to learn about. So yeah, let's jump into PPC. Tell us more. This is good.
So the way that I look at advertising in the honeymoon period, I recommend you do some external ads to Amazon. The reason we don't do external ads after the honeymoon period, the first 14 days, is because there's no way to actually track sales for your external ads into Amazon today. Amazon there used to be a tool like Zon Tracker used to be able to do this successfully. They made a synthetic pixel and they hacked it. It was the coolest thing ever. And you could track your Facebook ads, your Pinterest ads, your Google ads going into Amazon. They removed that API function in June of 2019. So for the last year, there's been no proven way to track sales into Amazon. And in Q4 of 2019, Amazon came out with this attribute beta tool to do this, but it's just never ever worked. It tracks traffic well, but it doesn't track sales. And you're not able to go into your ad and say it was version A or version B of said ad that led to that conversion. So that makes it really hard to optimize for ads going into Amazon. The reason I'm spending time talking about external ads is because during your honeymoon period, the best way to get the item off the ground is to blow it up with external traffic. Now, simultaneously, you should have Amazon ads fully optimized and ready to go. You should have your sponsored products, your auto and manual campaigns, targeting your competitor ASINs, category targeting, your headline, sponsored headline ads, and video ads if you really are trying to round it off and do every advanced ad technique available. By the way, video ads are the hottest thing right now, best advertising cost of spend. The secret is starting to get out on video ads, but if you haven't done them yet, let me tell you, it's absolutely worth the investment. We're seeing ads perform at 3-to-1 the ratio in video than we are in regular sponsored products right now for most categories. So getting ads boosted through external traffic will get the algorithm to train to say, hey, Amazon's paying attention to your listing. This listing is important. We think it's important, therefore we're going to give it additional earned media, and we're going to boost your keyword rankings, etc. So you don't just want to send bad traffic. You want to send good traffic that's going to convert. But because you can't tell what's converting, generally speaking, I'll throw $2 or $3 grand at a SKU in external ads in the first 14 days and then turn it off. Amazon PPC can then take it from there. It's like passing the baton, if you will. And you want to have advertising at a loss in the first 2 weeks, break even in the first 2 months, and then start to become profitable month 3 onward, generally speaking. The reason break-even advertising works on Amazon is because you generally will get 3 organic sales for every PPC sale that you obtain, and that makes it profitable through the organic side. Keyword rankings are also boosted from ads on Amazon. That's a very unique thing about the platform. That's not true about Google, for example, going to your website. The moment you turn Google ads off on your website, the sales stop from that traffic source. Versus on Amazon, you spend a couple grand getting a couple hundred sales in PPC on Amazon. You're going to see ads continue to produce in the form of SEO for months on end following turning that off. Now, obviously, you're going to see a dip if you turn them off, but if you turn them off and then did nothing, you'd still see something because of the ad traffic generated.
That's great. I mean, these are great tips and tricks just for anyone trying to think through the platform. And like you said, 8 years back, this wouldn't be the case. You probably didn't need to do any of this, but it's a different story now.
It was so much easier back then.
Right, exactly. So let's assume, a brand will go ahead and do all of this, and then one day they just get suspended or something. Give maybe our viewers some tips and tricks. How should they unsuspend themselves? What should they look for? How should they debug through the situation?
This is one of those instances where I'm going to say hiring an expert's going to pay for itself very quickly for 2 reasons. Number one is speed, and number 2 is the amount of time you're going to have to invest in fixing these problems. I have been on probably 200 hours of phone calls just this year alone, where I've been on the phone with people saying, man, Amazon doesn't make any sense. like that comment is the theme of 2020 with Amazon. And so my advice to you is stop trying to make Amazon make sense. It never will again. That ship has long sailed.
Right.
Instead, start focusing all of your time on figuring out the solution. So at My Amazon Guy, we don't claim to have any secret sauce. Like what we're doing, in fact, we actually share all of our trade secrets openly. Like you could ask me how I do anything on this pod and I would tell you.
Right.
There's a reason for that. Number one, that content is my ability to get attention. It actually earns me more business than the next guy. But nonetheless, it's still really difficult to navigate even if you know and understand the content.
Right.
So you're going to spend a lot of time trying to understand like what Amazon actually is asking for, and you're going to fail giving it to them. And that means if you've got a SKU that develops $30,000 a month in revenue and it goes offline, every day it's off, that's $1,000. If you try and
Mm-hmm.
go it alone and you're doing this and you're like, by day 3, you're like, oh, I burned my 3 responses appeals to Amazon. Well, then you're automatically 2 weeks out from getting it reinstated.
Right.
There's another 14, 15 grand in sales. You get the idea. So when it comes to account suspensions and listing reinstatements, that is bar none the best time to hire an expert to come in and do it. Common reasons for listing yanks include having a keyword that the algorithm disliked, a prohibited claim, you got a medical claim, if it's topical or consumable, be very, very careful about anything related to COVID. Safer to not say something than to say something, in other words.
Mm-hmm.
How does that affect your graphic design? A+ content, if you're in a category like medical related, have more photos than text. That's generally opposite of what I would recommend because more text is better for SEO, but it's safer to protect the listing. And so that's kind of when that bright line goes above SEO, I say safety first over SEO in that particular instance. But common reasons for listing yanks are all over the place. Hey, you are infringing on a trademark. So you've got this product, first thing that's on my desk here is this lightning cable. Oh, that you claimed it works with Apple products. Well, that's an infringement against Apple. You need to change the wording to say compatible with Apple iPhone 10 or 11X, whatever it might be. So stuff like that, very, very common, but how you go about fixing it and then requesting the reinstatement is really complex. It takes a lot of navigation and maneuvering.
That's right. And with this new ruling, there was this new ruling recently from the California courts, right? I believe that said that Amazon is not liable for everything on the platform. Do you think that this is going to raise the bar even more on getting yanked?
So I actually, correct me if I'm wrong, I think I read that article and it said that Amazon could be liable.
Could be liable. You're right. That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah, and if that's the case, that means Amazon's going to push the onus to the seller, which is probably going to increase listing yanks and claims and guarantees and warranty statements, right? So if that snowballs, Amazon is then going to be in charge of policing even more. So I mentioned early on the pod that I feel like Amazon's entering the maturity phase of its platform. That's going to accelerate from here, most likely. And additional symptoms or reactions that could cause in the marketplace, it could put some sellers out of business because they don't have the sophistication to keep up with that matriculated marketplace. It also might increase the amount of businesses that go out and buy other unsophisticated businesses, and they start like pulling resources together. So I've seen a lot of venture capital buzz to go out and buy businesses and pull them in together and then have that expert resource in-house to navigate all of these challenges. So that's like me thinking ahead of like, okay, how's the market going to respond to this? But how it affects an individual seller today, it just makes it, you're going to have to be very careful of what claims you have. And if your product does something that 2 or 3 customers complain about, you're going to see your listing go down, almost guaranteed.
Right, right. Yeah, it's interesting and different times. And I agree with your point, which is it's a different marketplace now, and it's entering this maturity phase as a marketplace itself. So that's one category of issues, you get yanked and then you've got to figure out how to reinstate it. But there could be this other category of issues around, well, my ad's not getting any impressions, or or my sales are down. Like, let's talk about maybe some tips and tricks there. Like, how would I troubleshoot an ad that's not getting any impressions?
This is a really difficult one. So June of 2019 was a very big month for the platform for Amazon. I saw tremendous amounts of changes to the algorithm and how I had to rework my entire agency advertising strategy, like from the ground up. In the past, I used to shotgun approach and I would put thousands of keywords on campaigns. Today, if you use that strategy, you'll have 0 impressions on your campaigns. So it's completely different. Instead, you're better off having shallow campaigns with like 5 to 10 keywords, and you'll get more impressions from having highly relevant keyword targeting than you would from having the shotgun approach. Additional things that you would want to look for if your ad has 0 impressions is, do you have the right SKU in the ad? So let's say you've got two fulfillment methods. You got FBA and merchant fulfilled, FBM and FBA, if you will, on the account. Well, advertising's at the SKU level, not the ASIN level. So a structural problem could be in place. Another issue that could be in place, and by the way, you just add both SKUs and then solves the problem. That one's actually a really easy one. Another problem could be that you have a bidding structure that's not good for where the campaign is in its life cycle. So when you first start a campaign, I recommend you always 100% of the time start it with fixed bid. There are three type of bidding strategies. There's fixed bid, which literally takes your 75-cent bid and bids 75 cents. There's up and down only. So up and down allows Amazon to come in and say, hey, this guy bought some apple cider gummies. I got these on my desk here. Apple cider gummy supplements. And we know that because they bought that, they're probably going to end up buying these elderberry gummies with zinc, right? So they would take your 75-cent bid and increase it up a percentage to increase the bid. The problem is, and you could do the same thing with down only. So, hey, I'm advertising said apple cider gummies, but you know what? This guy's been buying junk food all day long. He's got chips in his cart. I've got chips on my desk here too.
Right.
And so we know that guy that eats chips probably isn't going to buy these gummies. So we're going to bid down, right? Probably the best explanation I've ever given on bid up down. So this is a good one. I'll have to remember this one. But here's the challenge. When you first start the campaign, there's no past data that helps Amazon algorithm to know when to go up or down based on your product. They've never seen it sell before, in essence, right? So because of that, you're better off doing fixed bid, and then you'll get way more impressions when the product first starts. Now, after you've had about 20 transactions on that campaign, you can then switch it to down only or up and down, depending on how the ACoS looks. So that's probably the most common reason for lack of impressions is either too many keywords or the bidding strategy is incorrect.
I see. And then what about the more general problem? Like what if I'm just seeing sales down or, sales were stabilizing and then suddenly they're moving downwards? Like how would you troubleshoot just sales in general?
Yeah, so the worst month of the year for sales is July. And this year there was no made up holiday called Prime Day. August is also a little weaker as compared to most months in the year. But as we go closer into Q4, the market winds will shift very quickly. Black Friday hits and then all hell breaks loose and then boom, sales are up. I'm going to go ahead and put my neck out on the line and say that I believe Amazon sales this year are going to be up 100% year over year for 2020 versus 2019 in Q4. That's an insane prediction. There's a lot of implications behind that. We'll want to talk a lot about that. But before, I'm going to answer your real question, which was, what do we do when sales are not this insane Q4 in front of us? And the answer to that is it could be a variety of complications. Number one, it could be that the market is down in general. So I have, made the case that July and August are the weakest months of the year. That's why sales are down in general. Now, if you're selling a hot product, you're selling ammo cans and wow, the world's freaking out and everybody's buying guns right now, your sales are going to be through the roof, right?
Right.
Or if you're selling toilet paper and COVID 2.0 happens and everybody doesn't want to go to the grocery store, your sales are also going to be through the roof. Right. So those black swans, let's ignore those for the time being on this conversation. But if sales are down in general, you want to check your ads to make sure that they're up and live, like we talked about. You want to make sure the listing's not yanked, and you want to check your pricing as it compares to your competitors. So if your item is coming in at $40 and all of your competitors are at $25, there's a clear reason that the consumer is going to go buy that $25 item. And if you really impact this home, this is worth thinking about and visualizing. So if you're following us on this podcast right now and you sell items on Amazon, go to one of your own items right now. Like pull open a second tab, open up your own item. Start scrolling down your listing and see how many rabbit holes there are. How many places can a consumer go pick on your listing today? And you're gonna find out quickly that it's well over 100 rabbit holes on your listing. 100 rabbit holes of your competitors' products showing up on your own listing. So if your sales are down and you're priced uncompetitively, or you have 3 reviews on your listing and your competitor has 1,000, that's why your sales are down. Your conversion rate is just being eaten by your competitors. And if you look at your business reports, you can look at your conversion rate. Anything south of 8% of a conversion rate on Amazon, mind you, this is dependent on category, so I'm going an at-large 8%, is probably a bad conversion rate. Anything between 8 to 12 is average. Anything north of 12, you're probably actually leaving sales on the table by not spending enough money on advertising. But 13 and above is exceptional. And if you're sending external traffic, obviously you're going to have way higher conversion rates because you're sending them lower in the funnel. So that's also going to change the data application of this conversation. But because there's so many rabbit holes in your own listings, you really have to think through how to best represent your product. And if you don't have nice lifestyle images showing a human holding your product, you're going to lose to your competitors, because every one of your competitors that's doing well right now has low prices, good reviews, and plenty of lifestyle imagery to show and demonstrate the product.
This is amazing. Yeah, these are great tips and tricks again. And so, Stephen, to your original point on Q4, so tell us more about your predictions for Q4 and maybe even get into 21. Like, how do you think this e-commerce landscape is going to evolve? Hopefully, this COVID situation is just not a one-time occurrence on this e-commerce surge that we've seen. But what's your view on the market and how it's evolving?
I think I read the other day that like the Amazon numbers during May and April were up 43% year over year. So that was COVID 1.0. We had government shutdown, et cetera. We've seen schools basically not reopen this year nationwide. So what does that mean? Is there more government shutdowns on the way? Most likely, right? Doesn't take a wizard to figure out that we're going to see COVID 2.0, fall hits, weather, flu season, et cetera. It's all going to exasperate. We've seen the symptoms and signs that Amazon also is making this prediction. How do I know this? Is because they took what's called the index performance of your shipping, your IPI report, and they raised the bar. So in January of 2020, they raised it from 350 to 400. They want you to be more efficient with higher turn rates, moving their product out of their warehouse. They're really tired of storing your slow-moving inventory. They're going to start penalizing you. That's also another notch on the scorecard of Amazon entering its matriculated maturity phase. So now what happened was about a month ago, they came out and said, hey, your IPI, just kidding, 400 is not good enough. Now it's 500.
Right.
So that's a signal that Amazon believes they're going to stock out of room at Amazon. They're going to run out of room, rather. So what does that mean to you and your competitors? It means you can't send in enough inventory, especially if you're a seasonal Q4 item, which most products are. And so are your competitors also going to stock out. So it behooves you to have as much stock as you possibly can at Amazon right now, but they're limiting you from doing so because of the IPI score. So probably the best tip I can give anybody right now is if you do not have your own warehouse today, and you are only relying upon FBA, you need to go get a 3PL right this second and stock it so that you can ship direct to the consumer from your 3PL to the consumer. So find a 3PL who's willing to ship direct to consumer. If you don't do this, you're going to remember this conversation when December 2nd hits and you're already stocked out for the holiday season. Because I'm telling you right now, I'm calling it 100% up year over year. You're going to see massive, massive stockouts.
Yeah, I mean, you have a great point around, some of the leading indicators on what's going to happen to the market can just come from Amazon actions. If you just monitor what they're doing, you should be able to get a sense of, where the market's probably moving. They've got the intel, they control a big piece of the market. So, and it makes sense. I mean, all their actions indicate that there's no stopping right now.
So somebody who normally would sell 100K a month, but during November and December would sell 500K a month, they're probably going to top out at 300K this year because they can't literally send in more than a 3-month supply of stock. Now, if you wanted to still hit that 500K number, ship direct to consumer, merchant fulfilled, you probably will hit it. The other tip, if you're going to stock out and you're going to stock out, raise your prices. The most forgotten concept in e-commerce of all time is raising prices. There's 4 items in e-commerce, in my opinion. I'm quoting Harry Joyner. He's a national e-commerce recruiter, big friend of mine. your job as an e-commerce person is to sell more product to more people more often. And the one that I'm saying everybody forgets is the more money, for more money.
Mm-hmm.
So if your item normally sells for $20, but you look at your run rates and you're like, I'm going to stock out of this in 30 days, raise it to 22 and then raise it to 23 and then raise it to 25 before you stock out. Slow that 4-week run rate to 6 weeks or 8 weeks if you can, and make more money on the margin. Hopefully Amazon's price gouging bots don't go crazy during Q4. They probably will, unfortunately. They went crazy during April and May. But that's always been a best practice on Amazon.
Fantastic. Well, Stephen, these were great tips. I want to thank you again for joining us at this podcast here. So really appreciate it. But before we end, would love to maybe just tell our listeners, how do they get in touch with you? What's the best way to work with your firm?
Yeah, so at My Amazon Guy, we are a full service Amazon agency. Everything that increases traffic conversion to your listings to improve the growth of your sales. You can get a hold of us by going to myamazonguy.com and contact us today to get a free quote or tell us what services you need, what you need. If you're not ready to shop an agency today, I would highly recommend you just go to YouTube and subscribe to our channel, youtube.com/myamazonguy. We release literally all of our best practices to help you improve your sales. We hope that by giving back to the community, what goes around comes around, and we're always trying to remove Amazon barriers. As many as they put up, we're going to pull them down, and we're going to link arms with everybody in the Amazon community to help everybody out.
Fantastic. Well, Stephen, it was a pleasure again. Thank you so much. Well, everyone, this was Kunal signing off on another episode of Master the Marketplace, and we'll have more coming soon in the future. But for now, got to say bye to everyone. Thank you for your time, and see you soon.
Thanks for having me.
Through conversations with experts in online retail, with years of marketing, compliance, and inventory management experience, we seek to empower our listeners to master the marketplace. Thanks for listening. We hope to see you next time on Master the Marketplace with Caspian.